disdain, sorrow, hope, romance, or passion. That is the beauty of music. Music is a form of communication that often tells a story, be it a folkloric manifestation or an account of personal experiences. We rely on artifacts such as lyrics, rhythm, tone, movement, and fashion to help to tell a story. This is particularly impactful when we have breakdowns in communication, be it simply not understanding the lyrics to a song, a barrier or breakdown in linguistic communication, or in the event when we have one or more participants who are nonverbal.
So how does what we hear and see impact how we feel and respond? Intercultural competence allows us the opportunity to have conversations and also reflect on those reactions so that we can respond in a manner that supersedes our personal acknowledgments of cultures that are different from our own.
So this takes me to my experience, which leads me to my why I'm standing here in front of you today. I first realized the realm of communication and how diverse it could be when I was getting started on my pathway as an educator. You see, my senior year, I was sent to Peru, the highlands of Peru, to help to incorporate a special education program. So I was told before I went that I was going to be teaching students who were deaf and mute. So I said, okay, this is challenging. However, I'm a pretty dramatic and animated person. So with that, and along with writing, I'm sure I can come up with something that can be impactful for my students. So I spent all this time planning and having these plans and ideas and thoughts that I assumed that I was going to just go over there and teach. However, upon my arrival, I was surprised to see that everything that I had thought within my perspective of what teaching and communication looks like was challenged. You see, not only were my students deaf and mute, they were illiterate. They walked 5 miles to school each day. They were in their own side of the building, pretty much isolated from the rest of the class. And I had students from the ages of 5 to 16. They were all learning simple tasks such as ironing and folding clothes and washing dishes. There really wasn't much content being taught. So here I was, my major in secondary education, with these plans of what I was going to teach high school students, only to find out that I only had 2 high school students, about 4 what we would classify as middle school students, and several elementary students. So I thought to myself, what am I going to do to get through to these students? I said, well, I wonder if they know sign language. It would have helped because I'm very limited on sign, but just like language, sign language is also very different from border to border. So I sat and I thought and I said, you know what? I'm going to try to teach math and science using different techniques that get students engaged. So I had students doing graphic planes, I had them coordinating graphs and charts and such and so forth. And then I also had students do different experiments with science so that they could learn the differences of matter, solids, liquids, gases. But there was something that was missing there, a real connection, as I seen that my students were grasping it with lots of work and a system that we created that we could communicate with one another, but there was something that was missing, and that was the genuine investment piece. So one day I asked their general teacher, I said, what can I do to make this more impactful? I want my students to have fun and see that they are capable of so many other things besides your typical ordinary household tasks. And she told me, well, they love music and they love to dance. And this is when I realized that my perspective of communication was completely different. Here I am, sit here to teach these kids, and for once, I was challenged with, how are they listening to music? How are they dancing? And she told me, and I will never forget her words, though they communicate differently than you and I, they still communicate. They just use their senses differently than how we use them. So they typically will dance and dance on rhythm because they can feel the vibrations in the ground. And they rely on that to help to guide their movements so that they're dancing to the beat. And I had a great idea. It was the time for the World Cup, and this was Esto es Africa, a song by Shakira, was very popular at the time, and the kids loved it. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to teach them the dance to Esto es Africa. So after weeks and weeks of us learning the choreography, we got it. And we had to display what we learned in front of the school. So when we had our recital, my students got up there and they killed it. They killed the dance. And afterwards, something amazing happened. Other students who typically did not have much interaction with them came up and were eager to learn the dance. And though there wasn't much verbal exchange happening, the communication took place through the laughter. It took place through the interaction and the joy and the passion and their shared interest of music, Esto es Africa, the song at the time, and their love for soccer. It was at that moment that I realized how powerful communication could be, and how it's something that we cannot define or put within parameters of a social construct such as labels and definitions. Not only did I learn something that day, but so did my students. My students learned that they had so much more power than what they had been given credit for, that they too could interact with people who were different from that of their own. And then their peers learned something that day, that they could learn from people who were different from them. And they were the ones asking for help, and they were wanting to learn these moves, and they were so excited to share and take place in this interaction. This experience helped to drive my why and helped me to know that we have to do something different in our thoughts and in our processes.
Now that's interesting. I think that it's interesting how culture erases the box around communication. Earlier this year, during our Hispanic Heritage Month celebration, me and Ms. Gilkey collaborated together. Her using Espanol as a world language, and me coming from a musical background, displaying a universal language. We were able to show our students how impactful being interculturally competent you can be by expressing yourself through music, dance, art, and culture. So what we did, we found a song that the students could relate to. We found Guantanamera. This was a song about a woman from Guantanamo Bay, and this was pretty much a symbolism for people that were provided acts of injustice to them. This song provided a strong hold across the entire world and became a strong catalyst of what we think about culture.
And how it applied to my classes as a Spanish teacher, I wanted to ensure that my students were not only learning about different songs, but they were able to interact with different artifacts of culture that they could relate to. So we chose to learn different state dances to different Latin genres, be it samba, bamba, bachata, or salsa. And not only did we get the opportunity to learn this using authentic Spanish, my students were watching videos using authentic Spanish that was typically made for native speakers so that they could get used to receiving language in an authentic way that's not modified for language learners. They not only learned the dance steps, but they also learned the story behind it. Like my friend here said, they knew what Guantanamera meant and what it symbolized to the people. In addition to having that opportunity to interact with the music and dance, we also exposed students to different instruments that were unique to Latin America and that were typically outside of some of our students' experiences. In so doing, our students had the pleasure and the privilege of being able to interact with these artifacts of culture, as well as display what they've learned in front of our audience.
It is important for us as educators to emphasize how important it is for our students to have a continuous lifelong learning experience. Being culturally diverse, being interculturally competent are tools that they can use for lifelong learning, and that's something that us as educators and passionate professors in what we do is really important.
Absolutely. And this is why it is important that we shatter the box. Shatter the box, you might ask? Well, what does it mean to shatter the box? When we shatter the box, we stop looking at culture and communication as a labeled and defined social construct. That means that we as humans typically feel the need to put everything in a category, often forgetting that there's so many aspects of culture culture that are infinite. They're not within parameters. They cannot be defined. Culture and communication are two of those aspects. When we tend to put things or people in boxes and labels, we miss out on so many experiences that supersede our own. We have to have and open up the door for communication so that we are interacting with diverse practices, products, perspectives, and experiences. In so doing it, it allows us to realize that there are no two people that fit in all of the same boxes. All right, so what we want to do is make sure that we are including intercultural competence in our curriculum. So doing that by just taking everyday lessons and giving students an opportunity to reflect on their experiences, but also allowing them to see what that looks like in different countries. So aside from just having students perhaps taste new foods, what does it look like at mealtime? What do conversations look like? Are the customs the same? We think of, what it looks like here in the United States, but in different countries, they do different things just with everyday, ordinary occurrences that we often don't consider. That is what truly creates intercultural competency. When people are able to look at that and they're able to apply it based off of their experiences and create new perspectives that are different. In so doing, we are ensuring that our students are not only citizens of their culture, their region, or their nation, but they are citizens of the world and global ambassadors.
Let's do it.